Imagine a time when a simple lock of hair could spark a social scandal. What if I told you that one of the most famous poems in English literature, that is The Rape of the Lock, is all about such an event? But don't be misled by the title. This poem is not just only about violence, it's a mock epic, a brilliant satire by Alexander Pope that humorously exaggerates an aristocratic quarrel over just a stolen lock of hair. So today we'll break down this fascinating poem, explore its themes and analyze why it remains a masterpiece of satirical literature and why so many questions were often asked from this particular poem. So before we dive into the poem, let's understand its background. So the Rape of the Lock was written in 1712 and later it expanded in 1714. Why? Because in 1712 it was first published in two cantos. Next in 1714 it was published and it was revised with three more cantos. So totally we have five cantos in the poem The Rape of the Lock. And even in 1717 it was published with Clarissa's speech that is included in the poem. So, this poem was based on a real life incident between two noble families, the Formers and the Peters. So, Lord Peter snipped off a lock of Arabella Former's hair without her consent, which creates a huge social scandal. So, to ease the tension, our Alexander Pope turned this trivial dispute into an epic style poem to blend with grandeur and humor for the people to enjoy the literature. So Pope wrote this poem in heroic couplets, which was a form of rhymed iambic pentameter, the same style that is used in grand epics like the Iliad, the Odyssey, the Aeneid. But instead of gods and warriors, as we have read in Iliad, Odyssey, Aeneid, those are the story about the gods and warriors. But here, instead of gods and warriors, we have aristocrats, we have card games, and also definitely a stolen lock of hair, without which our poem is incomplete. So this exaggeration is what makes the poem a mock epic, a parody of serious epics that glorifies such trivial events. So, in total, this is a mock epic poem. So, this mock epic poem that humorously exaggerates a real incident where Lord Peter caught a lock of Arabella Former's hair, which causes a social scandal. So here Pope has, why it is a mock heroic poem? Because here Pope satirizes the vanity and the tribal concerns that was prevalent in the 18th century, or you can see that these kind of themes were very much relevant in our 18th century literature. Also, he tried to imitate the grandeur of epic poetry by imitating this aristocracy. So this poem is all about this. This is a brief introduction to let you know that what we are going to learn in the poem. So we had a short introduction about what the poem was going to be. Now I have presented here a character sketch. The characters we'll find as we learn further about the poem The Rape of the Lock. So I have presented a detailed character analysis of the major figures that is there in The Rape of the Lock to help you to understand their roles and their significance in the mock epic poem. So first we have Belinda, who was the heroine of the poem. So her role, she was the central character, a beautiful and vain young woman. So her traits were like she represents the aristocratic woman of the 18th century England, obsessed with her beauty and social status, symbolizes the superficiality of the upper class society. So the poem revolves around the theft of a lock of hair. Her exaggerated reaction to the incident highlights the theme of vanity and triviality. Next, we have the Baron, who was known as the antagonist of the poem. So, Baron was a nobleman who desires and ultimately cuts our Belinda's lock of hair. So, he was ambitious and determined. He views his act as a heroic conquest. And also, he represents the male entitlement and arrogance of the aristocratic men. So, his theft of the lock of hair drives the plot forward. And his action also mocks the grand heroic battles that was found in the epic poetry. Next, we have Ariel, who was the guardian self. So, Belinda's guardian spirit, who tries to protect her, and is that he was known as in the name of Ariel. So Ariel was the leader of all the sleeps and supernatural. He was a supernatural being that guide and protect the woman. So he represents Belinda's innocence and purity, and also he forewarns Belinda of an impending danger in her dream. But he fails to stop the Baron to show that the fate cannot be controlled. Also, this fact symbolizes that about the idea that beauty and charm alone cannot protect women from our male ambition. Okay, next we have Umbriel. So Umbriel was the mischievous gnome. So he was a spirit that brings gloom and despair to Belinda after the lock was stolen. So Umbriel represents Belinda's exaggerated sorrow and emotional turmoil. He even travels to the cave of Splain to collect some sighs and tears to intensify our Belinda's distress. So this fact satirizes how aristocratic women indulge themselves in melodrama over such trivial matters. And at last, we have Clarissa. So Clarissa was the voice of reason, who was a woman in the aristocratic circle who delivers a moral lesson. So she was practical, she was wise, and she was opposite, whole opposite. Her character was wholly opposite to Belinda's vanity. She also advocates for inner virtue over the external beauty. We have her speech in in our Canto 5, which presents the real message of the poem. Beauty fades, but good character definitely lasts. However, her wisdom is ignored, which highlights the shallowness of society. Also, we have sleeps, who are known as the supernatural protectors, who are some ethereal spirits who guide and protect such fashionable women of our 18th century. These sylphs, they represent the lightness, vanity, and floateous nature of women. Also, they can transform into different elements like air, water, fire, earth. They became helpless when Belinda's honor is at stake. So, this fact symbolizes that the belief that the woman must maintain their beauty and charm above all else, and their failure shows that the fate and human action override such supernatural intervention. So the characters in the Rape of the Lake are exaggerated caricatures which was used to satirize such aristocratic society. So Pope humorously just presents how superficial beauty, vanity, and this social expectation, how they dominate the lives of the elite people. So this is all about the characters case. So I hope now you have a slightest idea about the characters so that you'll understand the poem better. So now as we come to our Canto 1, which was the invocation and our Belinda's dream. So the poem begins with an epic style invocation mimicking such classical poetry. So Belinda is introduced here as a dazzling beauty, almost like a goddess. Her guardian spirit, the sylph Ariel, warns her in a dream that something terrible was going to happen. But instead of worrying, our Belinda just focuses on to elaborate her a beauty routine, which Pope describes in grand religious terms by mocking the aristocracy's obsession with their appearance. So before starting our line by line analysis, I would say that in this analysis, I have just included only the most significant lines from the Rape of the Lock to highlight key themes, stylistic features, and satirical elements. While the poem contains many more details, many more lines, these selected lines best captures Pope's epic heroic style and also his critique of aristocratic society. So let's start with our line by line analysis. So first we're going to talk about the first 1 to 6 lines, which was about the invocation of the poem, the starting of the poem. So the lines were like, "What dire offense from armorous scourges springs? What mighty contest rise from trivial things? I sing this verse to carol, muse is due. This aving Belinda may vouchsafe to view. Slight is the subject, but not so the praise. Ipse inspire, and he approve my lays." So here, the rape of the lock begins with a passage that outlines the subject of the poem, and also it invokes the aid of the muse. The sun appears to initiate the leisurely morning routines of a wealthy household. The scene was like that. And lapdogs shake themselves awake. Bell begins to ring. Although it is already noon, Belinda still sleeps. So this was the starting of the poem. But here we see that Pope imitates the grand openings of the classical epics like the Iliad and the Aeneid. Also, he humorously claims that such great conflicts rise from minor disputes or trivial matters, which helps to set the satirical tone. Also, he has here talked about Carroll, who Carroll refers to our John Carroll, who was one of the great friend of Pope. He asked Pope to write the poem just to ease the tension between the former and the Peter families. So here Carroll refers to John Carroll, who was a friend of Pope, and Belinda here represents our Arabella former. So he acknowledged that the subject is frivolous, but claims that the poetic treatment was going to make it glorious. So here line 7 to 22 represents about Belinda's dream, and I have incorporated some important lines that represents about Belinda's dream. So say what strange motive goddess could compel a well-bred lord to assault our gentle belle. So here Pope mocks the idea that a small event like cutting a lock of hair could have an epic cause. He also introduces the supernatural sylphs who protect the beautiful omen. Next, line 23 to 114 represents about talks about the Ariel and the other sylphs. So Ariel, who was Belinda's guardian self, as we have learned in our character's case, that Ariel was Belinda's guardian self, who tells her about these lines that of these am I, who thy protection claim. Ariel's my name, a spirit of the air. He warns her of an upcoming misfortune, but does not reveal its nature. So, as in the character sketch, I have already said that Ariel was Belinda's guardian self, and they can have any kind of form like air, earth, fire, any kind of form. So here here in Belinda's dream, the what was the role of sylphs? So the guardian sylph Ariel appears in Belinda's dream, and also he wants that something terrible will happen today. Also, Ariel, who was Belinda's guardian spirit, represents here vanity and social etiquette. He tells her that women become sylphs, gnomes, nymphs, or salamanders based on their personalities. So, sylphs like Ariel protect the flirtatious women. So, Ariel's warning is like a deliberately vogue, adding to the mock epic suspense, because as we learned in the line, he warns her of an upcoming misfortune but actually does not reveal its true nature. And here are some of the important lines from 115 to 148 that talks about Belinda's morning ritual. So Pope describes Belinda's cosmetic routine in religious terms by using these lines like, "And now unveiled the toilet stands displayed, each silver vase in mystic order laid, a heavenly image in the glass appears." So here he has represented some of the religious imagery, like he talked about toilet, which represents the dressing table in front of which Belinda was adoring herself, or Belinda was beautifying herself. Also, here unveiled, which talks about like an altar being prepared, like when an altar being prepared for marriage or for any other auspicious occasion. So unveiled was represents like an altar that is being prepared for something holy. Here, mystic order also suggests about some sacred rituals that is going to happen. Here also we can see that by using these kind of terms, Pope satirizes how women treat makeup as very much scared and sacred thing, and their dressing table as a shrine. So the mockery of the religious devotion we can see here. Instead of some spiritual enlightenment, Belinda's ritual is all about beauty. So Pope mocks how the upper class women treat their beauty rituals as the sacred rites. So the whole canto 1 was all about how the poem starts. He talks about some sylphs, how Belinda in her dream sees that Ariel was warning her about some upcoming danger, and also he satirizes Belinda's morning ritual about the aristocrats' morning ritual. Next, we have the Canto 2 that talks about the Baron's plot. So, next we meet the Baron here in the Canto 2 who desires Belinda's lock of hair. He prays at an altar, yes, an actual altar, that where he burns some past love tokens, treating his desire as a grand conquest. And this mocks how men of that time saw women's beauty as a prize to be won. So here in Canto 2, we'll see that it provides us about the description of Belinda and about the Baron's plot. So here Belinda is described as a goddess of beauty, and Baron, who was the Lord Peter, here plans to steal her lock and pray for success. So the lines start from Canto 2, which talks about Belinda as the queen of beauty, like not with more glories in the ethereal plain. The sun first rises over the purpled main. So here we'll see that Belinda's beauty is compared to the rising sun, exaggerating her social power. Also, the Thames River is presented here to represent the London's high society. The next line, like from line 21 to 46, it talks about the Baron's ambition. So some important lines where you can see that Baron worships a makeshift altar. So this line were like, this cascade India's glowing gems unlocks with pops, powder, patches, Bibles, beetle dogs. So here, Baron worships her makeshift altar. So Baron's prayer mocks these epic heroes who pray for divine support in battles. Pope also here equates cosmetic items to sacred relics, for ridiculing the female vanity. So this whole Canto 2 was about how Belinda was described in the poem, and how Baron plots how to cut Belinda's hair. So here is Canto 3 that talks about the cutting of the lock, which was a dramatic game, we can say. Here is the dramatic game. So now the Canto 3 was all about the climax. So in an exaggerated epic style battle, Belinda plays a game of cards which was portrayed heroic war. But while she is distracted, the Baron and very slowly, very cleverly cuts a lock of hair. So Pope even compares the Caesar to sword, as we're going to read some lines. But this whole Canto 3 was all about how Baron plots and how Baron cuts the lock of the hair of Belinda. So here, Canto 3's first 1 to 38 lines talk about the card game. The card game name was Omber. So one important line from these lines are, "Behold four kings in majesty revered." So the card game was described like an epic war, elevating the tribal aristocratic pastimes. Now, in lines 39 to 140, we can see that finally the lock is cut. Finally, Darren has successfully cut a lock of hair of Belinda. So the lines, the peer now sprays the glittering for fix wide, the meeting points, the sacred hair saver. So here, the forfix was compared or represents as Caesar's with an dramatic epic diction for a minor act. So the sylphs failed to stop the act, which symbolizes the fate and the vanity's fragility. So here we will see that how the sylphs who were there to protect the Belinda, to protect the aristocratic women, finally fails. Finally, they have lost in front of the fate, and finally, Baron was able to cut the hair of Belinda. So this whole Canto 3 talks about this concept. Next, we have Canto 4, which was all about how Belinda is distressed that her lock of hair was finally cut. So it talks about Belinda's overreaction and about the cave of spleen. So Belinda reacts as if she has suffered a tragic loss. So Pope in this Canto 4 has tried to humorously exaggerate her sorrow, saying that she could have preferred losing a necklace or even a lover, but not her lock of hair. Meanwhile, a mischievous gnome named Umbriel travels to the cave of spleen, which was a dark place full of female hysteria women and exaggerated emotions, which symbolizes the artificial drama of these aristocratic women. So in Canto 4, from line 1 to 60, it talks about Belinda's lament over her lock of hair. So the important lines from lines 1 to 60, which represents about this particular thing about Belinda's lament. So the lines were like, then flashed the lightning from her eyes, and screams of horror rendered the affrighted skies. So here, Pope mocks about Belinda's dramatic reaction that she had when she realized that her lock of hair was cut down by Baron. So she reacts in a very exaggerated manner. So here, as I talked about, mentioned about lightning from her eyes. Here, lightning from her eyes was represents her anger, which was exaggerated like a mythological event. So this whole Canto 4 talks about Belinda, how Belinda reacts when she finally realizes that her one lock of hair was cut down by Baron. Now we have our last canto, that is Canto 5, which talks about the moral and the fate of Locke. So in the final canto, Pope provides a satirical resolution. Clarissa was a character that was often overlooked, gives a speech about how women should value virtue over their beauty, but no one listens. Instead, the lock of hair mysteriously ascends into the heavens, immortalized as a celestial object, turning a trivial event to something legend that actually did not matter. So in the last canto, the lines from 1 to 80 talks about Clarissa's speech. So the most important line from lines 1 to 80 was, "But since, alas, frail beauty must decay, charm strikes the sight, but merit wins the soul." So Clarissa's speech was like this. So Clarissa provides the moral of the poem that beauty is fleeting, but virtue lasts. The next lines that talks about the lock, how the lock becomes a star. So the lines that represents this theme or this context was, some thought it mounted to the lunar sphere. So the lock's ascension or when the lock ascends to the heavens, it mimics the epic endings that we actually have in our epic stories, where hero became constellation, and this final joke reinforces the triviality of the entire event. So this last in the last we talk about in the last canto, we learn about Clarissa's speech, where she talks that beauty is fleeting, but actually virtue is the thing which lasts. and how the lock become a star, how the lock was symbolized as an celestial object. Now, as we have discussed about each canto, now let me summarize a bit about this whole poem. So when the invocation happened, the things started off like Belinda arises to prepare for her day's actual activities or social activities after sleeping late, and her guardian self, who was named Ariel, warned her in a dream that some disaster was going to befall her and promises to protect her to the best of his abilities. But Belinda did not notice this matter, or she takes a little notice of this oracle presented by Ariel. However, after an elaborate ritual of dressing and pampering herself to the fullest, she travels onto the Thames River to Hampton Court Palace, where an ancient royal residence presented outside the London. And in that royal residence, a group of wealthy young socialites are gathering for a party, which is very common at that period of time among the aristocrats. So, among the members of the party, there was present the Baron, who was the antagonist of the poem. Also, we can see that Baron has already made up his mind to steal a lock of Belinda's hair for his success. He has risen early to perform elaborate set of prayers and sacrifices to promote success in this enterprise. When the every member of the party arrives at the palace, they enjoy a game of cards, which Pope describes in mock heroic terms as a battle or a war. So here, after that, a round of coffee was followed. Then the Baron takes up a pair of scissors and manages to cut off a lock of Belinda's hair. So when Belinda learns about this, Belinda was very much furious, and Umbriel, who was a mischievous gnome, journeys down to the cave of spleen to procure a sack of sighs and flask of tears, which he then bestows on the heroine to fan the flames of the fire that was been ignited in her heart. So Clarissa, who had aided the Baron in his crime, now urges Belinda to give up her anger in favor of some good humor and good sense. But Clarissa's moralizing talks falls on deaf ears to Belinda. But Belinda also initiates a small fight between the ladies and the gentleman, in which she attempts to recover the curl that was been cut down from her hair. So this lock is lost in the confusion of this smoke battle. However, the poet consoles that this drift where Belinda with the suggestion that it has been taken up to the heaven and immortalized as a celestial object. So this whole poem was written in a very satirizing manner. Also, as we learned that this is a mock heroic poem, which actually lives true to its name. Now let's learn why this poem is important, or what actually Pope is saying. So, what is Pope really saying? Do you all understand by analyzing the poem? If I talk about my opinions, the rape of the lock is a critique of the vanity and superficiality of the aristocratic society. It also reflects about the gender roles of that time, how women were judged for their beauty standards, while men see them or pursue them as prizes. By using mock heroic elements, here Pope shows how how absurd it is to treat some like small social matters as grand epic events. Even today, we see that similar themes in modern life. I'll tell you how. People still obsess over their beauty, social status, and personal images. There is no better example than social media. Just look at social media and you'll know how people are still obsessed over the beauty, social status, and about their personal image. So here, Pope's satire reminds us about not to take these trivial matters too seriously, because it is not going to last for long. and to find humor in the exaggeration of the daily life. So next time, whenever you are going to fix your hair in front of the mirror or stress over such a small social scandal, always remember about Alexander Pope and his particular this particular poem, "The Rape of the Lock," and also try to analyze or try to think how Alexander Pope might have written a more epic poem about you. So, if you guys found this analysis insightful, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more dives into English literature like this. And let me know in the comments which poem or literary work you would like me to analyze next. Until next time, keep exploring the world of words.